Are you ready to rewrite your destiny? Within these pages, the 3 magic words await, ready to ignite a fire within your soul and illuminate the path to a life you never thought possible. Open your mind, embrace the truth, and step into the extraordinary with U.S. Andersen. The greatest adventure of your life begins now. Forward.
This is the era when man, surveying the universe from atop the heap of his material accomplishments, sees his insignificance in comparison to the stars, understands how puny is his strength in comparison to atomic power. This is the time when man, in his headlong rush to master the elements and harness nature's energies, has come far enough to know that he treads the wrong path to his own security. For there is no security in machines or electricity or electronics or atomic power. What am I? What caused me? Why am I here? Where am I going? These are the questions of the human soul that demand an answer. Their resounding echoes are in the offices of our psychiatrists, in our penal institutions, and our homes for the insane and depraved and wicked. Their anguished cries are on our battlefields, in our uprooted families, in every charred ember of every burned village and pillaged town that exists in the wake of the hordes of humanity, who have cut off their ties from God and from hope and from divine reality. For man is not an animal that exists upon the earth for a day, a freak of existence in a maelstrom of chaos. The human soul does not exist who at some cloistered moment has not reached out with timid fingers and touched God. No circumstance or fact or event or thing exists that does not have a reason, and so it is with man. All harnessing of nature's elements and powers, all creation of material wealth and possessions are but passing fancies, things of the moment, for man enters into life naked, and naked he departs. The only thing, the single important thing that concerns his existence on earth is the discovery of his soul. For man is not body alone. No human being can bear to live who regards himself as only a freak occurrence in a freak circumstance. Man is spirit, clearly and without dispute. Man is the essence of the mighty intelligence that guides and controls the universe. Man lives in this intelligence. He is a part of it and the whole of it. He is as small as his temporal life and as great as his spiritual life, for the intelligence from which he comes is greater than all, greater than the far reaches of space, greater than the power that holds the planets in their courses. This intelligence is man's Taus as he sees fit. It is God-given, a divine birthright, and is denied to no man except by himself. In the pages of The Key to Power, you will learn of the unlimited power that is yours. You will learn how you can turn this power to work for you, here on earth, to make your life majestic and overflowing with good. The Key to Power is not a religion or a sect or a society. In its entirety, it is a series of essays aimed at revealing to you your power over all things. You will learn that there is only one mover in all creation, and that mover is thought. You will learn that there is only one creator, and that creator is the universal subconscious mind, or God. You will learn that this creator creates for you exactly what you think, and you will be shown how you can control your thoughts, not only to obtain answers to your problems, but to create in your experience exactly what you desire. You will not do this in a day or a week or even a month, but do it you will if you keep heart and keep faith. It requires only a few minutes of your time each day, a few minutes that will reward you with greater vistas in life, greater hope and promise than has ever been dreamed. There is a cause. There is a reason. There is a power greater than you are, which you are a part of, which you can use to make your life good and great and vigorous and full of abundance. If thou canst but believe. All things are possible to him who believes. Chapter 1, The Lock. Raise up thine eyes to eternal sky, in thy bondage strike out to be free. Hush the whispering voice of the infinite, why with I am and I was and I ever will be. The Forging of the Lock. Somewhere in some city, town, or hamlet, there is a child being born. Somewhere pure spirit is inspired into form. And even now the lock takes shape. Mighty is the anvil that forges this lock, for it is the memory of the subconscious mind. Light, sound, discomfort, pain, roughness, dampness, hunger, smells, all impinge on subconscious memory, forging the lock that bars the door to the infinite. There is something both sad and beautiful about this. Sad because it seems sad, Tosi spirit deny itself. Beautiful because self-determination is beautiful. For this infant, wherever it is being born at this moment, is free, even as each member of the entire human race is born free. Free to determine his destiny. Free to discover the source of his being and the immensity of his power. False thought habits. Why is it, you may well ask yourself, that the great mass of humanity lead drab and colorless lives, concerned only with fear, frustration, and insecurity? What, you may well wonder, is the point of this scheme into which you have been drawn through, no volition of your own and from which you will soon depart? A microbe in a microcosm, a pinpoint on a pinpoint, a flicker in a flash of light. These thoughts are products of your conscious mind, and it could not be otherwise, for only the conscious mind remembers its beginning and looks forward to its end. The world is too much with us. Circumstance shapes our destiny, and this should not be so. There is a resource which can raise the human soul above all circumstance, but how few people use it. Do you know this man? John Jones was born in San Francisco in 1906. His parents were immigrants, and his father was a laborer. John grew up in modest circumstances and was a child during the First World War. His father was drafted and killed overseas, and the burden of support of his mother and two smaller brothers fell entirely on John's shoulders. Following the line of least resistance, John became a laborer. Each week his paycheck went to his mother. Later, when his brothers were able to contribute to his mother's support, John continued at his job as a laborer. He was, as he thought, unable to do anything else, and the full blame for his lost future he laid at the doorstep of a cruel fate, personified in resentment towards his mother. When he was 42, John developed a brain tumor and spent the latter years of his life bedridden, partly paralyzed, dying at the age of 48. Does this sound like one of the children to whom, as Jesus put it, it is the Father's good pleasure to give the kingdom? Does this sound like a free soul expanding into conscious cosmic power? It most certainly does not. Multiply John Jones by 1,000,000 and 1,000,000 times, it does not. Yet John Jones was using the same power as Einstein, Homer, Plato, Lincoln, Emerson, Buddha, and Jesus. Thought habits of the conscious mind shaped John Jones's life. He thought he was hemmed in by circumstance, and so he became. So that even when the circumstance dissipated of its own accord, he still could not stir away from his own conception of his position. He harbored a resentment toward his mother until it grew, within him, in the form of a tumor, to end his life, even as he was wishing his life ended through his own attitudes of defeat. Conceptual habits of the conscious mind are the greatest bar to man's discovery of himself. The same power brings both good and evil. If you have engaged in competitive athletics, you have seen a sign on the locker room wall that read, "A team that won't be beat can't be beat." And you know that a team that understood the meaning of that sign was a winner. If you are a businessman, you have heard it said, "Think big, do big." And you know that the men who operate on this premise do big things. If you are a member of a family, you have seen the power of faith work miracles. On illness, in financial insecurity, in birth, in death, in all of life's events. If you are a member of an organized religion, you have seen the tremendous power of prayer. If you have ever in your life been faced with a crisis, you know the calm inner self you have turned to in a flash, which has rewarded you with an answer in an instant. Everyone has experienced this power to some degree. It is not so securely locked, a way that each human being does not touch it during some period of his life. Yet, strange to say, the vast majority of humanity shrug it off as perhaps only a fortunate circumstance, a coincidence, a piece of good luck. It is important for you to remember, every day of your life, that the same power that brings you good fortune brings you bad fortune, and it does so according to who you use it. The only reason it brings so little good fortune to the great mass of people is that they do not know it exists, use it but sparingly, and use it the wrong way. Their conceptions of themselves are locked in the subconscious mind. And just as surely as the earth rotates, their futures are mapped out according to these conceptions and thoughts. The only way they can become free to achieve success and happiness and health is to arrive at truth, unlock the lock, discover the key, the mind that never sleeps. Perhaps you do not know or truly understand that the mind of man is not alone, memory, and reason such as he exerts when in a conscious active state. There is in him a mind that never sleeps, that is constantly active, with untold reservoirs that have never yet been plumbed, a mind of such infinite capacity and power that it could not possibly belong to one man alone. This is the subconscious mind, as sharply delineated from the conscious mind. The advent of psychiatry has told us a good deal about this subconscious mind. We know, for instance, that its memory is perfect, not just for important facts, but for every shade and detail and scene ever experienced. The skilled psychiatrist can run back 20 years in a patient's subconscious, eliciting a scene from him when he was 6 years old, and lo, the scene unfolds with color, sound, and detail, such as could not be recorded on photographic film. A bird's song faint on the summer air, the soft rustle of maple leaves drying on the grass, the distant rumble of a train, the grimace of a countenance, the movement of a person, words, inflections, all exact, even to emotional impact. And yet, here is a scene that the conscious mind had long forgotten. Probing the subconscious. Psychiatry, concerned with restoring people to mental health, has run back along the time track of the subconscious mind, probing for emotional sore spots, then exposing them to the patient's conscious mind so that he can rationally judge how trivial they are. Varying degrees of success have been achieved in the restoration of mental health by such methods, and certainly enough to have merited the procedure. Sometimes, alas, disaster has occasioned when a serious rejection of the conscious mind has been elicited from the subconscious and submitted to the patient, who in terror at this exposure has lapsed into hysteria or a stony depression. So great have been the emotional conflicts aroused. But this probing of the subconscious mind has unearthed a vast store of hitherto known material. Under deep hypnosis, patients have described noises and surroundings that could have been experienced only in the womb. In the same manner, there have been patients who have described scenes and times that it would have been impossible for them to know of or witness. A previous life? Some other person's life? Thought transference? Perhaps the psychiatrist has occasionally laid it to static on the time track of the subconscious mind, but the existence of such phenomena is indisputable. What a powerful, stupendous toy this subconscious mind is turning out to be. Games played in parlors are now assembling in the laboratory. The psychic who can foretell the future, the thought reader, the hypnotist, are falling under the scrutiny of the microscope. Measured, numbered, weighed, counted, tabulated, and cross-tabulated, they all add up to one thing. The subconscious mind is the most powerful creative instrument in the universe. It spans space and time, manifests form from substance, reaches out to all knowledge, and it exists in every man. The master and the servant. You might wonder why, with such an inexhaustible subject as this, we should concern ourselves with the conscious mind at all, the tiny, insignificant conscious mind that only remembers a very few years, that only remembers a very few facts, that barely has learned the rudiments of thought, and indeed is scarcely capable of dealing with its immediate surroundings. We are concerned because here we are dealing with master and servant, and startling as it may seem, the tiny little conscious mind is the master. It is like a button that works a switch, that works a lever, that starts an engine, that generates electricity, that moves the world. The subconscious mind does exactly what the conscious mind tells it to do. The prompter, pain rejection. Herein lies the problem. No one consciously wants to be sick. No one consciously wants to be poverty-stricken, unloved, unsuccessful. It would be impossible to elicit admission from anyone in the world that he consciously desired these negative things. He is the victim of prompters set into the subconscious mind by the conscious mind. These have been buried by the conscious mind, much as a forgetful dog might bury a bone, remembering neither the place of burial nor even the fact of burial. These prompters in the subconscious mind are responsible for the great hordes of unhappy people who now troop to psychiatrists. They have spread more mischief for individual lives and for humanity as a whole than any other single thing. They have given the world insecurity, hostility, greed, corruption, and hate. They are broken keys in a divine instrument. They have thrown mankind out of tune with the infinite. They are the lock that bars the door to self-realization. For example, Fred Smith is an unwanted baby. As an infant, his first searching for love from his mother meets with complete rejection. To cope with his hurt, Fred Smith develops an aggressive, arrogant attitude toward life. As he grows older, he forgets that he ever desired love from his mother at all. He takes pride in the fact that he needs nobody and nothing to make him complete, and he runs roughshod over people to attain his ends. Here is the making of a dictator or a murderer. Fred Smith hates life because his first reaching for life was rejected. He is simply rejecting that which first rejected him. He can't help himself. Consciously, he has long forgotten the cause, but the memory of the subconscious mind is perfect. The pain remembrance or prompter buried there will not let him rest. Man against himself. The psychiatrist, as has been pointed out, has faced up to this problem by running down these prompters in the subconscious mind and exposing them to the patient. For example, Miss B comes to the psychiatrist complaining that she has recurrent headaches. Investigation shows that these headaches always occur when she is cooking at her gas stove. It also develops that Miss B harbors a fear of fire. Running back through the subconscious time track, the psychiatrist discovers that when Miss B was 2 years old, her mother's gas stove exploded, and in the resultant excitement, Miss B's mother dropped Miss B on her head. Gas explodes, pain in head. This is the simple subconscious memory that prompts Miss B's headaches whenever she must work around a gas stove. Of course, the great majority of psychiatric treatments are not nearly so simple as this. The example is offered only to show how the existence of prompters in the subconscious mind is widely recognized and that the damage they can do is unlimited. Take the case of the man or woman who is poverty-stricken and desires money. No matter what he or she does, there is always the unfailing outcome. Little or no money at all. It would seem to this man or woman that the attainment of a comfortable amount of money is the most important thing in the world, but no matter the effort or time expended, only poverty results. Obviously, here is our prompter at work. Strange as it may seem, the prompter may be such a trivial thing as the subconscious bearing of an infant-heard phrase, "There's never enough to go around." Think of that. The subconscious mind believes there is not enough. And lo, the manifestation of lack and limitation is all that this particular person can ever encounter. The sick man wants to be well. That he cannot be well is evidence only of a prompter. In this case, the subconscious mind harbors such a phrase as, "There's so much sickness in the world," or "I could have done better but I'm sick," or, "There are millions of dangerous microbes all around us." What chance has a person to be healthy with subconscious prompters such as these? The lonely person desires love and friends, yet no matter the circumstance, he or she cannot seem to attract either a loved one or a social circle. There is a prompter in this person that repels love, such as, "Nobody ever did anything for me," "You can't trust anyone," or "People are just out to get what they can out of you." Or even worse, the prompter may set up a sense of inferiority, such as, "You're not good enough," "You don't amount to anything," or "Nobody loves you." Powerful subconscious mind. It manifests these beliefs into actuality. Who can be successful with a subconscious prompter that keeps convincing him that everyone is better than he? Who can achieve anything with a prompter that convinces him that all achievement is worthless? Who can rise to heights with a prompter that has him believing that he has no capability? The answer is no one. For the subconscious mind is the great creator, and it creates exactly what it is prompted to create. Self-mastery. Happily, you can remove each of these insidious prompters yourself. What's more, you can, by understanding the laws and dynamics of life, remove the cause of them so that they will plague you no more. This reassuring fact we place before you. Nothing is impossible to the mind of man, for the conscious mind controls the subconscious mind, and the subconscious mind is all-powerful. Every condition, circumstance, and manifestation of your life can be changed to suit your conscious desires. The commandments are only two. Know that fear is your enemy, and understand the lock. For fear causes the lock, and the lock exists in the subconscious mind in the form of prompters, placed there by the conscious mind. Today, with this first chapter, we ask you to begin to undo the lock. We ask you to eradicate from your mind all notion of yourself that has to do with where you live, where you were born, what you have done, and what your circumstances have been. We ask you to concentrate on only one thing, and that is the spirit within you. This real you, This conscious, hidden intelligence that exists behind your eyes is timeless, formless, and built from all the glory and magnificence that ever was. It is not a name or a job or a home. Indeed, it has nothing to do with circumstance or situation. The plain fact is that you exist. Dwell on that, nothing more. I am. Two more magnificent words were never put together. I am. This minute. This now. All the time that ever was. Only one mind and you must use it. You are pure spirit, cast into human mold as a manifestation of divine intelligence, existing this little while on earth to help carry on the divine plan. Being pure spirit, you are a part of the only intelligence there is, and all the power and understanding of this intelligence are yours to draw upon. There is only one intelligence, one mind in all creation, and everyone is a part of it. Thought transference, hypnotism, clairvoyance are only a few examples of the fact that we all are using one mind. Every book has been written by the same author, every building and bridge built by the same engineer, every picture painted by the same artist, every sonnet composed by the same poet, all music conceived by the same musician. You and your neighbor, us, everybody, one. That is the way it is. The universal mind that flows through everyone knows no limitation or lack, and nothing is impossible to it. Its great dominant characteristic is creativeness. Since it is all knowledge and all substance and all power, indeed the only thing it does is create. And it creates exactly what the mind of each individual person thinks into it. Now we are not discussing something that you can either use or not use as you see fit. We are discussing something that you use every day of your life, that you can't help using because it is a part of you. In fact, is altogether the real you. This universal mind knows no big or little, rich or poor, great or insignificant. It gives of itself according to need, and it creates according to desire. It is creating for you right now exactly what you are thinking into it. Construe this mind, if you will, as a great plastic medium containing all energy, all knowledge, and all substance. Conceive of it as a medium responsive only to thought and responsive in degree and time, according to how such thought is sped with conviction. We might then have a simple formula like this. Thought plus conviction equals manifestation. There is manifested in your experience exactly that which you are convinced of. However, even though our conscious minds desire success, if our subconscious prompters believe it to be impossible, then our emotional thought is all aimed at failure, and failure will result. The lock that forbids achievement and happiness is the existence in the mind of subconscious prompters that make automatons out of free persons. Exposing the subconscious. Though hypnotism as a science is in its infancy, it illustrates perfectly the remarkable power of the subconscious mind and how it operates entirely by suggestion. The hypnotist, through his methods of putting the conscious mind to sleep, simply removes the control which the conscious mind exerts over the subconscious mind. The patient, when under hypnotic sleep, acts on every suggestion of the hypnotist as if it were truth, for the hypnotist has now taken the place of the conscious mind. The hypnotist says, "You have no feeling in your right arm," and forthwith the patient has no feeling in his right arm. So deep, in fact, is this anesthetic that it far outdoes any drug known to science. The hypnotist may say to the patient, "When you wake up, I am going to count to 10, and as I count, you will gradually lose your hearing, so that when I get to 10, you will be able to hear nothing at all. When I start counting backwards from 10, you will gradually regain your hearing, so that when I arrive at 1, your hearing will be fully restored." This is post-hypnotic suggestion. The patient is awakened, the hypnotist counts toten, and the patient gradually loses his hearing. At 10, a gun is fired behind the patient, and not a single tremor indicates that he is heard. When the hypnotist counts backwards from 10, the patient's hearing is fully restored. This is the mighty subconscious mind at work. This is but one small example of the miracles you can perform for yourself. For you, your conscious mind can take the place of the hypnotist, and your power is magnified 1,000 times because you're working toward your own desires. Dissolving your negative prompters. First, however, we must be concerned with removing all negative prompters from the subconscious mind and installing in their stead a group of positive prompters which will lead us in the path of attainment and happiness. We need not remove these negative prompters as in a special procedure. Since positive will override negative, all that is necessary is for us to install in the subconscious a group of positive prompters. The existence of these will dissipate all negative prompters and allow the individual to expand to the full blossom of his power. For example, if you are consistently sick, it is a long way toward recovery to search the subconscious mind for the prompter that is causing your sickness. Rather, it is best to install a prompter that says that it is natural to be well, that health and vigor are birthrights of mankind, that you exist in a spiritual medium that is perfect, and that your body as a manifestation of this perfect medium is perfect also. Once this positive prompter is thoroughly installed in the subconscious, the negative sick prompter will wither and disappear. It is, of course, a great aid in this therapy to understand the origination of all negative circumstance in your life. The cause of all sin and punishment for heaven and hell are within you, and reward and punishment are simply cause and effect in your use of the great spiritual laws that govern all life. Intuition. It has long been established that the principal compartments of the human mind consist of memory, reason, and imagination. These three mental factors, however, when added together, have failed to yield the mystical whole of the human personality, leading psychologists to believe that all the factors of the human mind were not being studied. For some time past, an additional factor has come under laboratory scrutiny, the factor of intuition, the ability of a number of individuals to know the correct answer to a problem without being versed in the parts of the problem. It has been discovered that not all persons are so gifted, or rather that not all persons are intuitively awakened, but where such an awakening exists, reason and memory have flouted all measurement. Intuition, then, is a compartment of the human mind. Still, a fifth compartment of the human mind is only now achieving widespread recognition, even though ancient philosophers long ago proclaimed it to be the most important of all. This is the compartment of faith. See how common these quotations are. Faith can move mountains. As ye believe, so shall it be done unto you. Think big, do big. And yet, even though these written revelations are as old as recorded history, the world has blithely gone its way, disregarding them. How many of them we have chalked up to coincidence? There was the neighbor who rubbed a rag across the wart on your finger, buried the rag, and informed you that when the rag rotted, the wart would disappear. You believed it, and the wart disappeared. A coincidence, your adult mind says, because your education tells you that there is no way a rotting rag could possibly affect the existence of a wart. With such a conclusion, you are looking in the wrong direction, for it wasn't the rag, but the faith that caused the wart to disappear. Consider the life of Jesus. There can be no doubt but that this enlightened man was preaching to the world of the magnitude of his discovery of faith, through revelation, intuition, enlightenment, attunement with. The infinite Jesus knew, as perhaps no one before or after him, of the unlimited power of faith. Through it he worked his such miracles as the Bible discloses are happening every day of our modern life. A patient suffering with cancer of the throat was informed of a new X-ray machine that would cure his condition. This man could neither read nor write, nor was he informed about any of the instruments or procedures of medical practice. When he first sat down in the doctor's office and received into his mouth a thermometer with which the doctor sought to take his temperature, he believed he was undergoing X-ray treatment. The doctor, alert to the practices of psychology, recognized this, and after leaving the thermometer in the patient's mouth for 10 minutes, excused him and told him to return in 2 days. 3 weeks of treatment with a thermometer cured this patient's cancerous condition. Obviously, it wasn't the thermometer that did it. It was faith, creator. Here then is the human mind as we find it today. Principal conscious compartments consist of memory, reason, and imagination. Conscious memory is the ability to recall the past, while subconscious memory is perfect and contains the prompters which have been placed there as pain rejections of the conscious mind. Intuition is a characteristic of the subconscious mind, a phenomenon attributable to a contact made by the conscious mind with the subconscious mind. Faith, the mover of mountains, the worker of miracles, is the conscious mind acting on the subconscious mind. Memory, reason, imagination, intuition, faith, these equal the human mind. For the purposes of what we have to learn here, we need concern ourselves only with intuition and faith, for by faith we will overcome the lock, and through intuition we will contact the infinite. Nothing is impossible to the human mind when the lock is removed. Ships, planes, electricity, radar, rocket power, automobiles, engines, electronics, atomic power have all been the result of thought. Thought is the great creator, master and mother of the universe, God in man, the infinite in the immediate, and there is no end to individual power through the right use of thought. Thought plus faith, check, creator. But before we can truly use or understand this great creator, we must first understand the lock that bars us from its proper use. Journey toward God. Man is pure spirit, in essence a part of God, in actuality a manifestation of the infinite. As such, man is perfect, but temporal. His earthly existence is a matter of a moment. His form is ever-changing. In this earthly form, his spirit undergoes a sense of isolation and personal responsibility, which in his daily material life causes emotions of insecurity and isolation and frustration. These memories of insecurity, isolation, and frustration are unbearable to his conscious mind, his material mind, and he rejects them, hiding them within his subconscious memory where they act as prompters of limitation, lack, illness, etc. These subconscious prompters act as a bar to the door of the infinite, keeping man from full contact with the power of the great. The complete removal of all negative prompters in the mind, full contact with the infinite, complete recognition of the spiritual laws and the spiritual nature of mankind are the sum and substance of human existence, and provide the path mankind treads on its journey toward God. I am will not be denied. It is possible that you will be unready to accept with this first chapter the complete realization of your own divine origin and power. Perhaps the subconscious prompters in your own mind are now urging you to the conclusion that you are an insignificant bit of matter, accidentally sprung to life in a chaotic universe, without cause, without reason, without destiny, without power. Yet inside you, a still small voice knows the truth, and no matter the strength of your rebellion away from your true self, the fact of your spiritual existence, the great I Am will not be denied. Have no fear then that you will be lost. If, in this first chapter, there are statements made and conclusions drawn with which you cannot find yourself in complete agreement, it is only because you are now contacting those hidden truths that may not be learned without struggle. This you have in store for you. These chapters are not merely expositions, they are demonstrations. You will be given things to do, experiments to conduct, proofs to achieve that will convince you beyond all shadow of doubt that there is a power far greater than you and which you can use to make your life happy and fulfilled. The understanding of this power within yourself will expand your life to new and exciting horizons, will embark you upon the greatest adventure it is possible to know. The result of self-knowingness. Take, for instance, your body. According to measurement, it is short, tall, slender, heavy, handsome, dainty, rugged, strong, or weak. Within the scope of these measurements, you have established to yourself in some degree what kind of person you are. When you first came into self-consciousness in this life, your body was with you. You didn't order it. You didn't go to the great tailor and say, "Make me a body with 2 arms and 2 legs and 2 eyes and 2 ears and a nose and a mouth, and make it better looking than other bodies, and make it stronger than any other bodies, and make it so it won't wear out." If you had, you probably would have placed just such an order, but you didn't have the chance. Your body was ordered for you. You possessed it in an infant state and grew within it, even as it grew around you. The spirit clothed itself with a gown of flesh. The result of all self-knowingness is form, and so your form, or body, is the result of your knowing yourself, being aware of yourself. Your body is an embodiment of life, is an expression of life, for through your body, your spirit expresses itself. It matters not the form of your body, for it is perfect, even as the spirit within it is perfect. It is a perfect instrument for the expression of your spirit, and only the misuse of spiritual law can cast from it its perfection. All illness and disease is thus the result of the misuse of spiritual law and the lack of spiritual understanding. For God is perfect, spirit is perfect, and the body that expresses them must be perfect. The answer to why you and your body came into existence is as simple as knowing yourself. You, as spirit, are eternal and never came into existence. Your body is simply a manifestation of your spirit, a changing form made from eternal substance, even as all form must change. It is difficult to analyze and probe this mystery with the conscious mind, but it is relatively simple to demonstrate to the conscious mind the existence of infinite spiritual power. The elusive infinite, man's words and conceptions, with which he demonstrates his earthly control, are hardly adequate in tackling the realms of the spirit. Take the word infinite. Man has decided that infinite means never-ending. He understands a straight line. He claims to understand an infinitely long straight line. Yet if you were to take two crossed lines, infinitely long, and attempt to uncross them, you would find that, as you moved them away from each other, the point at which they were crossed moved farther and farther away from you. But since the lines never ended, they could never be uncrossed. You could, at the point you were grasping them, be holding them parallel to each other, and still they would not be uncrossed, even though they were straight lines. Obviously, the conscious mind, in its measurements and numbers, is scarcely capable of dealing with the infinite. Again, take man's conception of time, a matter of the Earth's revolution on its axis and its path about the sun, a matter of seconds and minutes and hours and days and months and years and centuries. Time, you might say, is as fixed a conception as there could possibly be, an unvarying measurement. Yet, in human experience, it has long been established that a second can be as long as a minute, an hour as long as a day. Einstein, in his theory of relativity, has expressed in the language of science the variability of time. Essentially, he has shown that the speed of light, 186,000 miles per second, is in man's conception infinitely fast. For at the speed of light, a mass would be infinitely big, and time would stand still. On the basis of this theory, it has been worked out that a spaceship traveling 185,999.9 miles per second could circumnavigate the universe in a period of time that would be 30 years to the occupants of such a ship. Yet, to those on the Earth, the spaceship would be gone 10,000 years. Yet, despite conceptual inadequacies, science has proven that every physical law of the universe has a corresponding spiritual law. Science has shown us that matter and energy are one, that even the heaviest and sturdiest materials are simply a collection of free-moving molecules banging against each other, moving at tremendous speeds. Through the use of the spectroscope, elements have been discovered on far-flung planets that weigh as much as 100 tons per cubic inch. Electronics may one day transmit masses around the world in a fraction of a second, even as pictures are now being transmitted. Certainly, this is no age in which to hold the idea that anything in the way of bridging space and time and form is impossible to the mind or the spirit of man. The challenge of the invisible. There have been, in the records of history, many enlightened men, teachers, scientists, spiritual advisors, and poets, and each of them has had this thing to say in common. There is a great medium of mind and intelligence that is in and surrounds every human being. This intelligence is all intelligence and knows and does everything. This intelligence, God, is an eternal creator, creating that which the mind of man thinks. A doctor whose professed views on life were on a strictly material plane has said, "I have cut many a body open, and I have never found a soul." To which it has been answered, "Undoubtedly true, but while you were there, did you ever find a thought?" The invisible plane of human existence offers the greatest challenge and the greatest hope for all mankind. A young woman born and raised in the United States, not able to read or write and speaking only the English language, was sitting in the front room with her father not many years ago, when through the front door came a longtime friend of her father's who had just arrived from Greece. At the sight of him, the young woman rose from her seat and began speaking rapidly to him in his native tongue, a language she had never heard nor studied. The man from Greece broke down and wept, for the young woman had just informed him that his wife, back in Greece, had died. Subsequent checking proved this young woman's revelation to be true. She had circumvented the barriers of space, time, and language to reveal this tragedy to this gentleman she had never seen before. Another woman, whose contact with the universal intelligence was acute, was able to provoke physical occurrence through nothing but thought. In demonstration, under the surveillance of a group of highly trained scientific minds, she activated through nothing but thought a light switch over which a soap bubble had been placed. The switch was turned on. The bubble remained unbroken. The truth lies in looking inward. So great is the newfound, newly recognized power of thought that groups are organizing throughout the world, aiming at the creation of peace, through thought power. What else is this but prayer? What else is this but the transmission of desire into the creative mind of the universe? Done correctly and with power, it must succeed. The responsiveness of universal mind to thought has long been beautifully taught by Dr. Ernest Holmes and his Institute of Religious Science in Los Angeles. Dr. Holmes has authored a number of fine books on the healing power of positive beliefs and maintains at his institute a spiritual treatment clinic that makes miracles an everyday occurrence. Yet Dr. Holmes smiles when they are called miracles. They're only the use of the law of mind in action, he says. Change the idea of a thing and you change the thing. It's that simple. This great plastic creative medium, this subconscious mind, this mind of the universe in which there is all knowledge, all wisdom, and all power, is ours to use every day that we live. We are using it now. We can't help using it. We are using it in such degree and in such manner as we understand it. And more often than not, we are using it in such a manner as to create unhappy circumstance and situation, delaying, if not forbidding, the realization of our own God-given divinity. It is our purpose here to impart understanding of the great intelligence to which you belong, to point out the errors of thought and the false circumstances that have locked you away from self-realization. This locked-in viewpoint, this limitation we impose upon ourselves must be dissipated. We have looked around us at the material world, made judgments about things and people, and then imposed those judgments upon ourselves. By looking outward, we have achieved what we believe to be knowledge about ourselves, and this is falsity of the very highest degree. Competition versus creativeness. If you were to take an average person living in the United States of America and ask him, "Who are you?" he would answer with either his name or his job or both. Similarly, he has an impression of his own success, his own wealth, his own ability, and his own desirability, which he has gained not from looking within, but from comparing himself with those around him. The essence of mankind is not competition, it is creativeness. In all this world, there is not another you, nor has there ever been another you. Is it not ridiculous to attempt to mold yourself into a likeness of your fellows, to attempt to undo the work that God has done? For you, as an especial part of the universal intelligence, are manifested here on this earth in the form you now occupy, to do work that only you can do. No matter how humble your job may seem, no matter how unprepossessing your position in life, take heart. The universe has sired no other person like you. Only you can be you. Only you can draw upon the infinite for those divine powers that are yours. There is a fine line of demarcation between competition and creativeness in the minds of everyone today, yet they are black and white, complete opposites on the polar scale. Competition attempts to be like. Creativeness attempts to be unlike. Competition casts all humanity into the same mold. Creativeness makes of each man an individual counterpart of God. Competition exists on the plane that makes you want to have a better home than Jack Smith, a better car than Jack Smith, a better job than Jack Smith. It leads you into the suffocating trap of not wanting the different, but wanting the same, only better. It imposes upon you a scale of values that is not your own, but belongs to a group. Creativeness, on the other hand, is a world all your own. If you were to take brush and palette in hand right now and paint a picture in oils, the result, good, bad, or indifferent by the world's standards, would be all your own. The finest artist living could not copy it exactly. Does not. This prove there is no other you? Conformity and competition are death knells to the spirit. Creativeness and nonconformity are an expansion into cosmic understanding, enlightenment. Your security in life depends entirely on your recognition of your divine nature. Money, home, insurance policies, and position are like wraiths in the night. There are no banks in the hereafter, nor pockets in a coffin. All the things of the world change. They are born, they blossom, they bear fruit, and they die. Only the great unity, your own association with the infinite, your own individual manifestation of the universal mind of God, only that is changeless. Your recognition and use of this great truth will provide you with such security as you have never dreamed, will cast into proper perspective every aspect of your life, will unloose in you such a flood of creative energy as to fill your life to brimming with success, accomplishment, and vigor. There is a key to this attainment. Could we but break down the barriers established by your conscious mind, Remove your prompters with but a word. The key could be given to you now, and your life would be changed this moment. But the conscious mind acting in accord with the insidious prompters is strong. Only hundreds of pages of discourse and proof will weaken its prejudice. Only diligent daily application of the principles of this book will finally dissipate all doubt. For faith is the great mover, the father of all creation. With each chapter you will develop your powers of faith and intuition. There will come a time, an hour, perhaps a moment, when you will feel a flash inside you, when suddenly all the world will assume a shape and a mold that will seem divinely inspired for you alone. Points to remember. In the meantime, you must go step by step. There is no quick, easy road to anything worthwhile. Take from this first chapter the principal points covered and record them indelibly in your memory. They are: 1. There is a power greater than you are, which you can use to make your life vibrant, successful, and happy. 2. This power is the universal creative mind, the subconscious mind, and you are using it now. You can't help using it. 3. All of us live and move and have our beings in the great intelligence that makes up the universe and the world. 4. This universal mind is responsive to thought. It creates what is projected into it. 5. The reason our conscious desires do not always manifest themselves in reality is twofold. 1. We are not projecting our thoughts with conviction. 2. There are prompters in the subconscious mind which cause our thinking to go astray. 6. The prompters in the subconscious mind make up the lock which bars us from proper use of the great power of the infinite. 7. These prompters are rejections of the conscious mind, buried in the subconscious and long forgotten. They are primarily pain experiences, and thus are primarily negative, attracting and creating lack and limitation and disease and unhappiness. 8. This lock, these prompters, can be removed by understanding, study, and application of the great laws of spirit. The high adventure. It is always necessary to understand something about a lock before you can use the key. It is equally important to understand a good deal about the key before you can use it to open the lock. In this first chapter, you have encountered the basic elements of the lock that keeps you from enjoying but a small fraction of your godlike given power. Certain elements of the key to the lock have been discussed. In the following chapters, you will arrive at a complete understanding of the lock and a complete understanding of the key, so that you will, without further help, be able to embark upon the most productive and happy and vital years of your life. And you are not likely to ever again meet with such high adventure as you study and experiment with your own divine nature, as you discover for yourself the great source of power and wisdom that exists within you. Don't argue with yourself. Subsequent chapters will cover such subjects as illusion, mind, form, faith, intuition, love, success, health, attraction, and immortality. The final chapter, the key, will reveal a great metaphysical secret. Throughout the book, we will undertake the study of hypnotism, thought transference, and clairvoyance, and we will show how they are all products of the vast power of the universal subconscious mind. Enlightenment, however, is not going to be as simple as just reading the chapters. You must devote at least 10 minutes daily to the practice of what you have learned, for only with this cooperation and effort can the rewards of self-realization be achieved. We ask you to spend 10 minutes daily in meditation, projecting your thoughts into the creative subconscious mind so that they can manifest into actuality. These meditation periods are designed to accomplish a purpose, to prove to you that you can achieve your desires through the proper use of mental law. Of course, if you spend 10 minutes each day saying yes, and the other 23 hours and 50 minutes saying no, the no will result. Obviously, the only way the yes can be manifested is when you do more affirming than denying. The subconscious mind always acts, and it acts on the most predominant thought. Therefore, commit the meditation to memory or carry it with you. Throughout the day, when circumstances appear to be negative, when disillusionment, depression, or discouragement knock at the door of your consciousness, simply bring the meditation to your mind and say it over to yourself. The simple saying of the words will immediately restore your peace and confidence. You must understand that as a human soul, you can't quit using the law. You can't help using it a single minute of any day of your life. You're using it now. If you decide that you cannot achieve success, health, happiness, and peace of mind, then failure, illness, unhappiness, and confusion are yours. For the law still works, and you can't stop it from working. The only question you have to answer is whether you desire good or evil, for the law must bring you one or the other, according to your desire. Meditation, manifestation. In the beginning, the Word, and so it is with all creation, for the Word is the thought. Speaking the Word with conviction and maintaining that conviction with faith is the complete chain of manifestation from the thought to the thing. The first meditation, which is given at the end of this chapter, is designed to put you in contact with the universal subconscious mind, to provide you with a sense of peace, power, and security, for only with this sense of the absolute can you go through the entire book. To complete self-realization and unlimited power, subsequent meditations will aim at achieving specific results in the realms of success, accomplishment, money, health, love, and happiness. During your meditation periods, you must be alone. You must be in a place of quiet and solitude, undisturbed by other voices or the movements of other people. You must set your mind at rest, forgetting for the moment all cares and problems and people. You must let go of everything you know except self. When you feel calm and peaceful, you will know that you are in contact with the universal mind. Then, and only then, speak the meditation aloud. But don't simply speak it. Understand it, feel it, project it. It will manifest for you in actuality. First meditation. I know that I am pure spirit, that I always have been, and that I always will be. There is inside me a place of confidence and quietness and security where all things are known and understood. This is the universal mind, God, of which I am a part and which responds to me as I ask of it. This universal mind knows the answer to all of my problems, and even now, the answers are speeding their way to me. I needn't struggle for them. I needn't worry or strive for them. When the time comes, the answers will be there. I give my problems to the great mind of God. I let go of them, confident that the correct answers will return to me when they are needed. Through the great law of attraction, everything in life that I need for my work and fulfillment will come to me. It is not necessary that I strain about this, only believe. For in the strength of my belief, my faith will make it so. I see the hand of divine intelligence all about me, in the flower, the tree, the brook, the meadow. I know that the intelligence that created all these things is in me and around me, and that I can call upon it for my slightest need. I know that my body is a manifestation of pure spirit, and that spirit is perfect. Therefore, my body is perfect also. I enjoy life, for each day brings a constant demonstration of the power and wonder of the universe and myself. I am confident. I am serene. I am sure. No matter what obstacle or undesirable circumstance crosses my path, I refuse to accept it, for it is nothing but illusion. There can be no obstacle or undesirable circumstance to the mind of God, which is in me and around me, and serves me now. Chapter 2. Illusion. Thy life is an image inexorably cast by the pictures that form in thy mind, and that which thou seest is that which thou hast, seest thou evil, and evil is thine. Evil, the great illusion. As the first step in our discussion of evil, let us sensibly get rid of both the devil and hell. Make up your mind that the intelligence that exists behind the universe does not destroy itself. The pain-ridden idea of hellfire as a place of punishment for sin is man's own morbid idea. Evil is man's own morbid idea. Disease and suffering are man's own morbid ideas. God does not know of the existence of these things. Since he created man free, he has left it up to man to conceive his own situations, and man has thought into existence all evil. It is ego absorption that colors everything in terms of good and evil. Never was this brought home to me more thoroughly than in the pre-dawn hours on the bridge of a destroyer on patrol in Nasugbu Bay, Philippine Islands during World War IE. A 40mm shell had just struck the chest of a Japanese attacking in a suicide boat. He seemed so close that I might have reached out and touched his hand. The shell exploded, and he disintegrated before my eyes. The scene was seared into my mind. Throughout the battle, it kept insinuating itself. This was the first violent death I had witnessed during the war. Surely this was an evil thing, that a man should die at the hands of other men, yet a great cheer had gone up when he had been killed. Had he managed to drive his explosive-laden boat into the side of our ship, we would have died instead. So, We took his life and rejoiced. But was not that evil to him? Certainly his family, friends, and loved ones did not rejoice. Surely they were overtaken by the despair that everyone calls evil. Good for us, evil for him. We rejoice, his family despairs. But was it good or evil? Was there even cause for rejoicing or weeping? Who judges? Whose judgment is adequate? As we skirted the coast of Samar next night, I stood on the fantail of the ship and watched the wake spreading on the sea like a path of frost in the moonlight. Some of the night and the stillness seemed drawn into me. Then the word came. Viewpoint. I felt the joy of discovery. It was only the viewpoint of the absorbed and limited ego that caused the appearance of evil. Evil was partial knowledge. To God, in whom was all knowledge, evil was non-existent, and what I had witnessed in the death of the attacking Japanese had been simply the resolution of forces by which God was evolving truth through man. There was no victor, no vanquished, no evil. All was God moving toward manifestation of his perfection. That the erect and the fallen are but one man standing in twilight between the night of his pygmy self and the day of his God self. Evil is the great illusion of all mankind. Religious thought of all ages has seldom offered more than a stumbling solution to this enigma, for nearly all religions offer a kindly and loving God, who yet has created evil and is tempting man with it. Now, it is obvious that there is nothing kindly or loving about a God who visits disease and pain and poverty and suffering upon his children, any more than there is anything beneficent about a deity who creates evil so that he can burn in hell those he manages to tempt with it. The very plain fact is manifest. If God is a God of love, he did not create evil. And so with the entire hideous conception of the devil and hell. If God created the devil and hell, he would have to know that he was going to send some of his children there, and it even follows that he would have a pretty good idea who they would be. So that would give us a God who created the temptation, who created persons unable to resist it, and who pre-condemned them to an eternal residence in the furnaces of Satan. It is ridiculous, of course. Yet the extremely important point is this. As far as man's earthly life is concerned, if he believes in evil, he experiences evil. If he believes in disease, he experiences disease. If he believes in hell and the devil, he suffers all the tortures they offer each time he falls from what his own mind considers to be grace. Man alone has created evil, hell and devil, but God has nothing to do with them. Now we must understand what God is. God is obviously all wisdom and all knowledge. Since he knows everything, he never has any problems. There are never questions to answer, nor goals to be achieved. There is never knowledge to be gained, nor experience to be had. Everything to God is apparent. Each movement to God is automatically creation. Somehow mankind has insisted upon devising a God with a whole set of moral attributes, but since moral implies conflict with immoral, God couldn't possibly be either. He could not possibly be put in the position of wrestling himself with good and evil and creating that which for the moment gained the upper hand. It has to be understood that God only creates, and that he creates, without the knowledge of good and evil. It has to be understood that each human being is a living embodiment of God, that God is in him and around him, and that each human being creates through thought. Morally, the world-conscious human being knows right and wrong and good and evil. Therefore he creates them. He creates them by his own thought. We, all of us, not God. For the act of creation in this life is accomplished by the conscious mind, acting on the subconscious mind, and the universal subconscious mind is the mind of God. Mankind will never be able to accept an all-loving and just God who created evil. Mankind has never been able to reconcile such a God with the patent fact that disease and suffering fall like rain on the just and unjust. The thinking mind is emotionally torn to bits even dwelling on such an idea. But we needn't think of it further, for it can be proven that disease and suffering and evil of every kind are created by man, and man alone. The spiritual law of cause and effect. The startling but very apparent fact is that we do not obtain to the good of life by being moral or right use alone, but we obtain good by creating good by the power of our faith and thought. As ye sow, so shall ye reap is one of the world's most veiled and misunderstood sayings. For centuries, religious belief has held that Jesus meant that the moral, ethical, and lawful misconduct of a man would be punished in the hereafter. Nothing could be farther from the truth. This saying speaks only of the spiritual law of cause and effect, A seed sown in the garden of the mind shall reap the blossom thereof. For the subconscious mind is a garden, and like the garden of earth that knows only to cause things to grow, the garden of the subconscious mind knows only to create reality from the seed of thought. Whether this thought is moral or immoral, ethical or unethical, has nothing whatever to do with the inexorable process involved. For the seed having been planted must grow, and grow it will, into physical fact, unless the seed itself is uprooted and another planted in its stead. Freedom, the essence of mankind. Since we have likened mental processes to religious ones, and since we have said that God is the subconscious mind, and that the subconscious mind, or God, does not recognize the difference between good and evil, there will be those among you who will be quick to assume that a God who does not know that suffering and pain and disease and war and disaster are attacking his flock is little better than a God who purposely looses these forces upon them. Do not forget for an instant of a day in your life that you are free. That freedom is the most miraculous part of your existence. That freedom has allowed you to establish exactly what you are today and will allow you to establish exactly what you will be tomorrow. That freedom must allow you to obtain what to you is evil as well as good. Otherwise, it would not be complete freedom. The very essence of man's existence is a determination of what constitutes good and what constitutes evil, and the subsequent choice of the good. For the good makes for progress, and the evil retards progress, and the purpose of all mankind is progression and creation. Only by creating both good and evil can mankind judge the good and the road of progress. Even as you have nerves in your fingers, so that when you touch a hot stove, the pain keeps you from burning your hand off. So the pain, physically, circumstantially, and emotionally of all evil, is designed to keep you on the path of progress. God did not create the evil. He simply endowed you with the prime function to create, and He allowed you to create what you will. He endowed you with the instinct of survival and progress so that when you create something contrary to your good, the lesson should keep you from creating it again. But God made man only to create through thought. Beyond that, each man chooses his own road, morality and spiritual law. It is a common misunderstanding that morality and ethics are at all times synonymous with good. Morality and ethics are man's conceptions of what is good and, in the main, are right for any certain time and place, though they are constantly changing. But the irrefutable fact is that success and achievement and health and vigor are not directly the result of morality and righteousness. If they were, there would never be a maiden stricken by disease, there would never be a newborn baby with a crippled body, there would never be a poverty-stricken saint, nor a righteous failure. And the truth is that the world is full of all these. So often you hear it said, "I can't understand why all this bad luck has overtaken me. I've never done anything to deserve it." Or someone will remark with horror, "I work, and yet everything I do seems to fail." Or again, "I try so hard to do the right thing, and yet God always seems to be punishing me." Get those thoughts out of your mind. Bad luck doesn't overtake you, you create it. Success isn't the result of hard work, it's the result of right thinking. God doesn't punish you, you punish yourself. Put the seed of failure in the subconscious mind, and it will develop failure for you. Put the seed of disease in the subconscious mind, and it will develop disease for you. Put the seed of loneliness in the subconscious mind, and it will develop loneliness for you. Put the seed of unhappiness in the subconscious mind, and it will develop unhappiness for you. Evil, the tragic illusion. The importance of your neighbor. There is but one universal mind in which we all live and move and have our beings. There are billions of conscious minds thinking into the universal subconscious mind, creating a physical reality, with each thought that is sped with complete belief. This universal mind is reactive, creative, and it can create for your neighbor what you think into it for him. Now consider that very carefully. The universal subconscious mind tends to create for your neighbor what you think into it for him, and it tends to create for you what your neighbor thinks into it for you. Is it any wonder that the second most important commandment of Jesus was, "Love thy neighbor as thyself, for even as your neighbor regards you, so shall it tend to be done to you." Now, of course, you may be thinking of success, and your neighbor may be thinking of failure for you, and you may be successful, but only because the subconscious mind always acts. It always acts, and it acts on that thought behind which there is the most belief. Perhaps you haven't fully absorbed the idea of there being only one mind, one universal subconscious mind, which we all use. May we point out to you the existence of thought transference, a phenomenon which can't be explained on any other premise than our all existing in the same ether or intelligence or mind. May we point out to you the existence of mental healing done without any overt contact with the person being healed. May we point out to you intuition or insight, which enables a person to have the answer to a problem even though he has never figured it out. Even the infamous voodoo rites are not altogether superstition. Certainly the sticking of pins into a rag doll could never make any person sick, but the faith that accompanies such a pin sticking may cause a limb to wither, a fever to rise, a cure to affect itself, or a mountain to move. See no evil. Only one thing, and that is physical reality. It matters not whether the thought is good or evil. If the faith is there, it will manifest, for that is the law. Thought plus faith creates. Believe you will fail, and you will. Believe you will succeed, and you will. Believe you will be well, and you will be. Believe you will be sick, and you will be. Believe you are unloved, and you are. Believe you are unattractive, and you are. Verily, I say unto you, if you have faith as a grain of mustard seed, you shall say unto this mountain, move hither, and the mountain shall move. Evil could not be anything other than the result of man's belief. Observe the triad of the Orient. See no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil, whence it follows like the night the day, there then can be no evil. Stuttering mankind, grasping at the edges of truth since the ancient civilizations of the Orient, has never been thoroughly convinced that his belief could make his life God, like in beauty and abundance and harmony and achievement. Man can struggle toward truth, this life. We must see evil as it really is, simply illusion, simply pain response, a wrong track taken, an experiment toward truth but always illusion, a wraith-like ephemeral thing that dissipates like the fog at morning when it is denied. Evil as an existing reality, an entity separate and apart from man, has been taught since the beginning of recorded history. This fallacious assumption no doubt owes its origin to the fact that mankind has never been able to account for the occurrence of evil, which seems to follow no moral pattern, which falls on the just and unjust, the strong and the weak, the wise and the ignorant, the rich and the poor. Observing that a newborn child made its entrance into the world with a withered hand or an addled brain or a stunted leg, men mystically assumed that God must be punishing this child for the sins of his father. The sins of the father shall be visited on the son. How close to truth is this intuitive grasp of the law? It is not, however, the moral transgressions of the father that are visited upon the son. It is his errors of thinking, not only of the father but of the father's brothers and of every erring individual who projects his thoughts into the creative mind of the universe. Only one cause. Just like everything that exists, there is a reason for evil, and just like everything that exists, there is a reason for the deformity of the newborn babe. Genetics may offer its cellular thesis that a defective chromosome in the egg or the sperm has blighted this young life, and indeed it will be difficult to dispute that such a physical occurrence did actually take place. But why? That is what we are concerned with here. Everything on this earth is the result of thought. Now let us qualify that statement. This does not mean that everything has been created by thought. It simply means that everything has been created as a result of thought. The great universal plastic creative medium of the subconscious mind acts on all volitional thought that is placed there. The sum total of all life uses this mind. Every thought of every person who has ever lived has been indelibly recorded in this mind, which has been moved to action because of it. This mind attempts to manifest all thought to the person thinking it, and it also attempts to manifest it to all the world. Since everything in existence is the result of thought, all form maintains itself as long as the thought is held. As the thought changes, so does the form. Every newborn child is the result of thought, in form as well as substance, the event of conception being only a physical event in the chain of manifestation, as the carpenter nailing boards together is a physical event in the chain of manifestation of a house. The form must be the result of thought, and so, with the newborn babe, it therefore is inescapably true that deformity in a newborn child is also the result of thought. Now this may prove to be rather startling to you, as indeed no mother is likely to tolerate the premise that she has visited some deformity upon her child through a thought conception. But let us not forget that all thought is not consciously projected into the creative mind. A very great portion is projected by our buried pain remembrances, the insidious prompters of the subconscious mind. It is also true that thought conceptions of other persons than ourselves, nay, even every person who has ever lived, may show themselves in our experience. In order to truly understand this, we must return once again to the universal subconscious mind, the mind we all use and live in. This mind or intelligence is not in man alone, but in every living thing. Behold the process of evolution, and you will see desire being projected into the universal mind and returning in physical reality. The fish experiences land and desires to walk and becomes a reptile. The reptile experiences air and desires to fly and becomes a bird. The reptile desires size and strength and becomes a horse. Bears, wolves, tigers, lions, snakes, everything that creeps and crawls and flies and swims and burrows and builds and desires, all are results of thought or desire projected into the universal creative mind of God. The fish has fins. The polar bear's fur is white. The chameleon changes colors to blend with the foliage. Every reaching desire of conscious life is answered from a great inexhaustible source without regard to suffering or good or evil, but simply an answer to conception and desire. Should the temperature of this earth drop 100 degrees, life would survive and adapt and evolve in different form. Should the earth and the planets fade away, life would survive and adapt. For desire is life, and life is change, and change is progress, and they all answer one immutable law. Deformity in the newborn babe may seem a hideous injustice as we view it in terms of our own selves in a kind of self-identification. Yet the distant future may hold a day when mankind in physical form will not need arms or even legs, or may occupy a form that today would be regarded with horror by everyone. For today, our thought conceptions of ourselves are what we see in actuality, and we are so firmly convinced of the reality of this evidence and the permanence of it that we cannot conceive of change in any other light than monstrousness or deformity. The subconscious mind, or God, does not recognize suffering, or pain, or war, or famine, or disease. It recognizes only conception and desire, or thought and emotion, and it recognizes them only one way, by creating them into actuality. Thought and faith, sole responsibilities. There are only two things you can do for yourself. One is conception, and the other is conviction. All the work of creation rests with another than you. For no man is responsible for anything in this life except his thought and his belief. All else is the working of the great creative universal mind, beside which the largest atomic plant in the universe is like a gnat on the face of the earth. Jesus said, "Come unto me, all ye who are burdened and heavily laden, and I will give you rest. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light." Can you now gain an inkling of what this great man so thoroughly understood? He said, speaking of his miracles of healing, "It is not I who doeth the works, but the Father who dwelleth within me." He knew the responsibility of creation was not his. He knew that a power far greater than he would resolve into actuality any thought which he was convinced of. He did not stand at Lazarus's grave and restore Lazarus to life by a process of effort. He knew that Lazarus would rise. Beyond that, the responsibility was no longer his. There can be little doubt but that the same power that responded to Jesus and restored Lazarus to life would, if approached with the same conviction, cause Lazarus to die. This power manifests evil as well as good, for it does not differentiate between the two. It simply creates according to image and conviction. Thus, with all evil. God sendeth his rain on the just and unjust alike, for evil befalls the righteous and the unrighteous, but it cannot visit him who sees and is convinced of nothing but good. Truth and error. The experience of evil and the selection of good is the path mankind must follow. Like everything else, this also has a reason. Good is truth. Evil is error. The experience of error and the selection of truth are progress. When man knows all truth, man will be God, for he will have arrived at the same position as God. And there no longer will be problems or searchings, for everything will be known and apparent. Perhaps we, in our lifetimes, are not to approach this infinity. It seems at least like a gargantuan undertaking with our little knowledge and our little faith to presume to banish evil from our experience within the comparatively few short years allotted to us here on earth. But this much is a certainty. If we know that evil proceeds from thought just as good proceeds from thought, we can establish eternal sentinel on our minds to guide our thoughts in the paths of good and progress. For even the ultimate is not impossible of attainment this very moment, could we but have the faith and have the image. Since good is truth and evil is error, it is then apparent that evil is illusion. Evil is a wrong road, a mistake, a pain experience, simply a search on the road toward truth. And since it is not truth, it is error. And since it is error, it is illusion. Being illusion, evil dissipates with consummate ease. It is replaced by good with almost miraculous speed. Good can only be replaced by evil when the conception of good very weak and the conception of evil is very strong. For truth does not lightly yield to error, while error has few defenses against the illumination of truth. For a man to know sufficient of truth to consciously exercise the power of the subconscious mind must necessarily deter him from exercising that power for the creation of evil. In other words, it hardly would be possible for Jesus, or any man as enlightened as Jesus, to use the same power with which he restored Lazarus to life for the attainment of Lazarus's death. For all humanity searches for truth, and the truth once revealed will not permit error. Since truth is good and error is evil, the knowing of good forbids the choice of evil. Withholding spiritual knowledge. There have been, besides Jesus, many enlightened men who have lived on this planet. There have been societies of these enlightened men whose perception of the truth has been so acute that physical manifestation from thought transference, and intuition have been common in their daily lives. Yet these men and societies have usually thought it dangerous to reveal this knowledge to humanity as a whole. Mankind, however, has come a long way in the last 20 centuries. It is no longer a case of revealing truth to the unready, as a loaded gun might be handed to a child. For all humanity now reaches out for an answer to the great why of human existence, and is searching for peace and knowledge. Though there is little doubt that the haphazard placing of mental power in the hands of the unready and ignorant could not help but have some negative effect on human progress, there is also no doubt but that mankind stands at the threshold of spiritual freedom this very day. It is not only needed and desired, it is veritably demanded by each person who lives that he gain access to the laws that govern his life so that he may use them for his own benefit and the benefit of humanity as a whole. Truth can always be described. Many metaphysical treatises and some philosophical treatises deal with the outer world as though it were all illusion and the only reality a submergence in self, a sort of letting go of consciousness to attain a sense of complete selflessness. This sense of the absolute, however, has never been fully described, and such failure has been laid to the inadequacy of the several hundred languages that are spoken by human beings. Truth must always be possible of description. Since it exists, it must be known, and when it is known, it can be described. All truth exists in some form, somewhere. This does not mean that all physical circumstance is truth, for both good and evil manifest themselves, but illusion. The only illusion that exists in this life or in the life of the spirit is evil. Truth is reality, and reality can be described. Sin and punishment, cause and effect. Perhaps we are now better able to understand the ideas of sin and punishment. Sin is not a transgression against God or law in the sense of the violation of a moral code, nor is punishment a vengeance enacted by society or God upon the transgressor. Sin is simply error, and punishment is simply the inevitable result of error. If you are looking for a friend's house and you turn down the wrong street, you cannot expect to find your friend's house on that street. You have turned down the wrong street. Consequently, you will not find his house. Cause and effect, a law, that is all. So it is with all evil, which is error. That which you think good or evil will inevitably develop in your experience. If it is evil, it is error. And if it is error, the effect upon you must be evil. When you know that God is perfect, you will understand that God cannot err. And since evil is only error, God could not possibly be responsible for it. So evil is error and is illusion and is created by man in his search for truth by his thought conceptions being projected into the universal creative mind or subconscious mind. From the experience of evil, man chooses truth. In other words, he progresses by a system of trial and error. Each error carries with it its own consequences, since we are dealing with a law of cause and effect. Therefore, the consequences of error are born on this earth. They are not born in a hereafter. Each soul, returning into the subconscious mind from which it came, returns without moral stigma, without judgment of my kind, without praise or blame, without reward or punishment, for we all are branches on one great tree which neither chastises itself nor destroys itself, but is simply contemplative and creative. Followers of certain religions which feature purgatory and damnation will now raise the point, well, if the pure and the sinful are judged alike in the hereafter, what is the point of being good in our earthly lives? It seems highly objectionable to be restrained from the committing of evil, simply because you wish to be rewarded with a harp in a nice cool place rather than a pitchfork where it is very warm, for this illusory promise of reward and punishment in the hereafter is a pale ghost alongside man's creative search for truth. You don't have to wait nearly so long as the doomsday to gain your punishment for evil. Steal your neighbor's purse and discover how soon. Your own life is forfeit. That which you send out returns to you in this life, this now, this most important time that ever was, and it returns much sooner than you think. Do not suffer remorse. Remember this, remorsefulness is a sin against yourself. As a human being, you will make mistakes in arriving at truth. Do not allow remorse to become a prompter. Be joyful that error has disclosed truth. The tragic picture of man dragging through life, chastising himself for every mistake, making discouragement and shame his bedfellows, and even frightening himself into immobility through a hideous vision of punishment in hell, is the source and cause of every prompter of the subconscious mind. Of good, almost magically. And every error in your life is for the purpose of revealing truth to you, and not to stultify your divinity in shame and remorse and fear. There will be evil in the world until man completes his progress to a oneness with God. For there will be error until all truth is known. You will make mistakes. You cannot live and not make mistakes, but this you can do. You can suffer the consequence of each mistake only once and no more. Let us face this very simple problem with the courage with which we are all naturally endowed. Let us not be afraid of making a mistake or of suffering the consequence if the mistake is made. If you have a desire, let it manifest. Don't keep telling the subconscious mind, don't, until, weary of moving back and forth, it lays the weight of its indecision on your shoulders with a burden no one in the world could bear. Say either do or don't, one or the other. For the subconscious mind is a vast army at your command, but it needs a clear-cut authoritative decision. What results then must be either truth or error. If it is truth, your whole life will be immediately bettered. If it is error, you will suffer a temporary punishment, a setback. But from the knowledge of truth thus gained, you have progressed. For this temporary setback, like the error that caused it, is simply illusion and is actually progress toward the realization of truth. Find a man who has suffered a score of defeats, and you will find a great soul. He may know more of truth than the man who has won a half-dozen victories. The man with a half-dozen victories knows a half-dozen truths, while the man with a score of defeats may know 20 truths, dare to be convinced. You must allow the subconscious mind to create your desires into actuality. If you desire money, let it be an assurance, a conviction that the law must resolve. Then without doubt the money will be yours. This, of course, does not mean that the consequence of your having the money fills you with vanity and lust for power that lead you into isolation and worry and the automatic attraction of the destroyers of your happiness. Now, this is by no means axiomatic. A great many people have attained wealth, prospered with it, done a great deal of good with it, and have been far better off through having it. Yet there have been just as many people to whom the attainment of money has meant the dissolution of family, the destruction of health, and the complete disappearance of enjoyment of life and peace of mind. But if you want money, don't vacillate about it. Don't, on the one hand, complain that you do not have enough, and on the other, say that you don't care to have a lot. See? Seesaw. Goes the subconscious mind, and exactly nothing happens. You must dare to be convinced on whatever it is that shapes up as a problem to you. Dare to make a decision, take a side, be convinced. Let that decision manifest itself in actuality, then shirk neither from the reward nor punishment. For if you err, there is nothing, that will hold you in account except the law of cause and effect, a strictly impersonal operating law, and once the consequence of the error has come upon you, you need have no fear that any others will be visited, unless you create them yourself. For if you carry, from some error, shame and remorse and chastisement, these must act on the subconscious mind to create themselves in reality. One bright day, a young man starts out to open a business. At first, things progress favorably, but in final consequence of wrong thinking, his business goes bankrupt. Wrong conception, or error, carries only one consequence, and the day this young man's business goes bankrupt, that consequence is brought home to him. But now is when he may make the greatest error of all. If he takes stock of what he has learned, discovers and recounts the errors in his thought, arrives at truth through examination of his error, then boldly strikes out once again, he is using the great powers of the universe as they must be used, and success will surely come to him. But if his error builds shame and remorse and self-pity, he will suffer added consequences as long as he carries these illusions with him, for they will continue to develop in his life as long as he thinks them into the subconscious mind. Man makes circumstance. Now it must be thoroughly understood that we are not denying the existence of evil. We are simply denying the reality of evil, naming it illusion, as it surely is. No great man or woman has ever lived who has not risen above circumstance, literally denying the reality of lack, limitation, illness, poverty, and inferiority. If you allow yourself to be a product of circumstance, then each encounter you make with evil will convince you of the reality of evil, and further evil will be created in your experience. Moreover, you will make despair and fear and unhappiness your constant companions. Don't think for a single minute that circumstance makes the man. Man makes the circumstance. Through the great law of attraction, all things come to him who believes in them, and every circumstance of your life inevitably has been attracted to you by your own beliefs. You are, literally, a product of your own thought. You are what you think. Only that, nothing more. You must right now convince yourself that evil is an effect, not a cause. Evil is the result of erroneous thought conception. Erroneous thought conception is the cause of evil. Evil is a circumstance, and you, as a divine part of the universal intelligence, need never be the result of circumstance. You create the circumstance. Only when you believe circumstance to be greater than you are, will you allow it to continue to develop evil in your experience. Man-made law versus spiritual law. All moral and ethical laws are aimed at the general welfare of the human race as a whole. In other words, moral and ethical laws are designed as race preservatives. Since the first law of individuals or groups is self-preservation, there can be no doubt but that the evolution of all moral and ethical law consistent with the spiritual laws of the universe. This, of course, does not mean that moral and ethical laws shall not err, nor that they shall not on occasion promote evil, for all form, and man-made laws are no more than form, is but a temporal manifestation of thought, and must change as thought changes. Consequently, we have the great evolution of human society from tribes of warring nomads to our gigantic cultures of today, where we dwell in relative peace with the main aim creation rather than destruction. It is interesting to note that the plan of ethical and moral laws is essentially the same as the construction of the laws of the spirit. They are both designed as true law, simply cause and effect. Break a law of society, and society will punish you for the transgression. By imprisonment, by ostracism, by financial penalty, by retracting certain rights within the group. Whatever evil circumstance the individual creates in his breaking of the law attempts to visit on him in return. Though the original basis of this law was laid on considerations of moral and ethical right and wrong, once the law is broken, there is started a chain of events that moves without any consideration other than cause and effect and moves inexorably to its conclusion. Of course, because the laws of society are man-made, it sometimes happens that the lawbreaker escapes society's punishment for some time. Not so with the laws of the spirit. These laws work without the chance of error. And he who thinks evil creates evil. And he who sends out evil will find evil returning home once again. Moral law, therefore, is simply the effort of mankind to lay down rules of conduct which aim at eradicating error from society. Similarly, the laws of the spirit can be understood in such a manner and with such enlightenment as to eliminate error from the individual life. The prompters at work. It is strange how often we recognize right from wrong and how often we follow in the path of the wrong, almost as if we desired evil. Scarcely a person lives who has not on some occasion performed some miserable act or deed in which he could not seem to help himself, as if some magnet lured him onward, as if in the performance of this wrong he found a secret martyred delight. It has been convenient for society to propound that this only proves that the devil lives side by side with God, and that evil is a thing in itself, a temptation tossed in the pathway of the righteous and the sinner alike. Let us not be led astray by this type of abstruse thinking. God and the devil did not jointly author mankind. Obviously, one or the other did, since the possibility of their taking up such a joint enterprise defies all rationality. If the devil made man, then God could not exist in man, neither could good, and all would be evil. Since evil is error, all life would be error, and as a consequence everything would be chaos, without design, without form. If God made man, then man is essentially good, but being free is likely to fall into error in his search for truth. Isn't this mankind as we see it today? The devil is as illusory as evil. He does not exist in reality, neither do his fires. What men have always thought to be the work of the devil, we can, in this age, say with certainty, is little else than the remembrance by the subconscious mind of those pain experiences which have been rejected by the conscious mind. Forget you've made mistakes. Here, we must point out the wonderful truth that Jesus Christ brought to the world, the revelation that the universe is owned and operated by a God of love. It is difficult today to properly report the magnitude of this discovery, since mankind up to then had always lived in terror of a God of vengeance. But Jesus reported a God of love, whose very essence is one of tolerance and forgiveness. It is not simply a coincidence that the Christian world has progressed in 2,000 years a score of times farther than all of mankind in the previous eons of existence. It is because Jesus taught that a man need suffer the consequence of error only once and no more, because the message that Jesus brought to a world fraught with morbidity and oppression and disease was simply that a man need never carry the burden of his mistakes with him. How prominent was this point in Jesus' teaching? Take up thy bed and walk, thy sins are forgiven thee. Go and sin no more. It is a mistake to assume that Jesus was interceding between a revengeful God and a sinner, or that his speaking of sin had anything to do with morality or ethics. What he was saying was simply, forget that you have made mistakes and stop thinking about error. All is well, good is everywhere. Now, we are not likely to have a world free of error for some time. There is little doubt that all of us will contribute some degree of error, regardless of how enlightened we strive to be. But the plain and comforting fact is ever present. We need never fear the consequence of error unless we insist on carrying it around in our minds as a burden that grows like a snowball, attracting other evil to it at an ever-increasing rate. The power of the word. Perhaps from the previous chapter, you have been able to elicit sufficient understanding of the prompters that exist in your subconscious so as to make apparent the problem we are faced with now. The attraction of evil, limitation, lack, disease, poverty, etc., can 1,000-fold more be laid to the insidious prompters than to any error honestly made in the search for truth. Today, you may be walking around with a subconscious full of prompters that would have you be sick, would have you be poor, would have you be lonely and unsuccessful. You must control these prompters or they will control you. You must, by conscious meditation on the spiritual laws of the universe, install in the subconscious a conditioned response for good, which will automatically displace all negative prompters. You must do this or there is not the slightest possibility of the full and good life. You cannot expect evil without creating evil. After having performed meditation, there no longer can be any doubt in your mind, but that speaking the word means activating some power to create the conditions you desire. The word or the thought, since time immemorial, has been the first step in all creation, all achievement, all desire. The power of the word or thought is such that nothing will stand against it, as long as it is spoken with conviction. The subconscious mind is a brilliant deductive reasoner. In fact, there is valid reason to assume that deductively, the subconscious mind reasons perfectly. Given a premise like, I will make money, it can produce a series of brilliantly logical steps for the accomplishment of same. For example, under deep hypnosis, a patient was informed that he was in discussion with Plato, and from the subsequent discussion, there evolved the most beautiful philosophical premises imaginable, as if they came directly from the mouth of the master himself. This discourse was far above the normal intelligence of the patient, and witnesses for some time believed that this young man had actually contacted the spirit of Plato. Everyone is prone to attribute all things beyond his immediate understanding to the realm of ghosts and banshees and shades and shadows. But let there be no doubt. The subconscious mind has as its resources all the knowledge and wisdom there is, and all occultism is simply the use of the mind in which we all live and move and have our beings. You are never alone. In view of this intense discussion on evil and good and their creation in individual lives, you may be regarding the conflict between them as a battle, necessitating your most valiant efforts. In other words, a great weight of tremendous effort may be settling on your shoulders as you think of the eternal sentinel. You must stand at the bastions of your conscious mind to prevent the entrance of the forces of negative thinking. Similarly, since we are human and must err occasionally, you may be regarding future error with fear, thinking with indecision over courses of action. Let us dispel this thought once and for all. Let us first dispel it by assuring you that you are never alone. Responsibility for your slightest action never rests entirely with you. Were it up to you, all by yourself, you couldn't walk across the street, speak to a friend, or even be in existence. Mark this fact well. You didn't create yourself. You cannot by yourself do the slightest bit of creating. The power into which you project your thoughts is the only creative force there is, and it builds and constructs all form and circumstance. But it does this according to how you think. Accept, don't will. Now, it is absolutely impossible for you to make this power do anything. You cannot by sheer force of will bend this power to suit your needs. You are not greater than God. You cannot either stop or start this power in its creating, for it is greater than you are and it moves according to law. You cannot say, I am going to make money with all the determination and ferociousness you can muster and expect that you are creating in your experience anything other than belligerence and opposition. You've got to accept, not demand. You can't will anything. This does not mean a doctrine of resignation, far from it. It simply means that you recognize that it is not you who does the creating. It is a power greater than you are. This power creates what you believe and manifests to you what you are prepared to accept. Be sure you understand this. All your will for money will avail you nothing, for that is the wrong use of spiritual law. Money will be created in your experience only if you realize and know that there is abundance all about you and you accept it. In other words, you don't demand money. You don't force money with the idea that there is not enough to go around and you don't have enough of it. You accept money. There is a great abundance of it about you, and you know that. Therein lies the true use of spiritual law as against the isolated exercising of the individual's will. For the force of your will against the universal mind must inevitably set up that same thing in your experience, so that you see opposition instead of cooperation. When Jesus said, "It is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom of heaven," he meant exactly that. For all the power of creation is given, it is never yielded upon demand. Expect and accept, know and experience, be positive and thankful. For the great laws of attraction and creation are laws of attunement, and never divulge their secrets to those who batter at the door with force. Suffer little children to come unto me, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. We must realize that Jesus was the greatest metaphysical teacher who has ever lived, who has not seen a child completely accepting all good with an open heart and a knowingness. Only the don'ts we fear-conscient adults impose on this godlike young mind ever set up. Conditioned can'ts, impossibles, lack and limitation. For the child accepts all good as a natural course of events, depends completely on all good being directed to it simply because of its desire. Accept, know, and accept. Those are the secrets of all prayer and meditation. Guidance through attunement. It is important for you to know that even with thought, the entire responsibility need not rest with you. The power that creates is the power that knows, and it is possible, with perfect attunement, to achieve in each condition of your life a situation of guidance. Now, you cannot achieve attunement or guidance when you are consciously willing something to happen. The very idea of your will being imposed upon that of God's is indefensible from any kind of view. When you have completely accepted the power greater than you are, when you know it will create in your experience that which you believe, you will also find that it also will provide you with answers to your questions. You must do this by letting go of your problem. Once the basic elements of the problem are clearly defined in your conscious mind, and once your general objective is clearly defined in your conscious mind, let go. Forget the problem altogether. One morning, while you are going about your daily tasks, you will find the answer. It will strike your consciousness with such impact as to remove all doubt but that it is truth. The answer will be crystal clear, of such simplicity that you will be amazed that it never occurred to you before or that you ever held any doubt about it. This is guidance. It is not achieved by any effort or will. It is achieved by confidence in the power greater than you are. It is achieved by complete acceptance of the power greater than you are. If you are able to effect this complete attunement every minute of every day of your life, there can be little doubt but that pain and lack and limitation and disease will never more exist in your experience. But we must caution you against raising your expectancies higher than your faith. If you say to yourself in the morning, "I know I am working along the paths of success," and go the rest of the day complaining about every obstacle you meet, you may wind up the week expecting that success should be yours, but it won't be. Your faith must be with you at least 51% of the time before it will manifest in your experience. But a manifestation will come, one way or the other, according to the predominant thought. You are now experimenting with the greatest force in nature. We caution you not to become so wrapped up in it that you forget your daily life. Do not search for contact with the subconscious mind to the exclusion of the exercise of the conscious mind, for as a human being your goal must be to achieve a perfect balance between the two. The ordinary people we meet each day scarcely use the subconscious mind at all, and their lives are directed and controlled entirely by circumstance. Men and women of genius are those in whom there is a perfect balance between the subconscious mind and the conscious mind. It is balance we strive for, balance between the great creative power of the universal subconscious mind and the conscious mind. Work at your meditation joyfully and confidently. Cast aside all doubt and morbidity and effort and strain. You don't have to make anything. It is already made. You only want to use it correctly. Accept, believe, know, relax. The universe will provide you with all you desire. An experience with telepathy. As an interesting experiment with the power you are dealing with, gather a few friends together and conduct a session telepathy. Join hands in a circle after one member of the circle has been blindfolded. In the center of the circle, place a pack of playing cards. At a given signal, expose one of the cards to the sight of all members of the circle except the person who wears the blindfold. Be careful to expose only one card. Have all members of the circle concentrate on the exposed card and instruct the blindfolded person to report the card uppermost in his mind as soon as he has a clear picture of it. Let every member of the circle wear the blindfold in turn. Your results won't be perfect, but will prove to you beyond any doubt that there is a mind or ether or medium in which we all live and move and have our beings, and through which we may contact each other through nothing but thought. This is the universal subconscious mind, the meditation. Our meditation following this chapter is aimed at dispelling illusion or evil. When you have settled yourself for your meditation, recall to mind all those circumstances in your life which you consider to be error or evil. Say to yourself that they are simply illusion and do not exist in reality. Then commence with your meditation. Within a month, you will see some very startling changes. In later chapters, we shall become more and more specific with our meditations, until one by one we have laid each ghost and demon that springs from the buried prompters in your subconscious, until your life opens to unlimited horizons and great adventure, until you see the universe as it really is, designed specifically for you. Second meditation. I know that I am one with the universal mind. I know this mind is perfect, and I may rely upon it for complete guidance in all of my daily affairs. This universal mind, this great subconscious mind, this mind of God knows no evil or limitation or lack. It simply creates in my experience that which I believe and accept. Therefore, I deny all evil and all error. When my eyes and my senses are deluded with the apparent circumstance of evil, I turn away, lifting my thoughts to the perfection and abundance and love of all the universe. I know that God does not create evil, and I know that by using the power of God I am able to deny evil, which is only illusion, simply error, and will not stand before truth. For the great reality is good, which is always attempting to manifest itself. I know that error or evil is the result of my own thought, is the result of error on my part, is the result of isolating myself from the power of the universal mind. I know that the universal mind is constantly creating in my experience that which I think, and if evil is manifested, It has come from my own thought, and my own thought may as quickly deny it. I do not will anything to happen, for I am not bigger than God. I simply understand that the law of creation is bigger than I am, and that I cannot help my thoughts and beliefs from becoming real in my experience. Therefore, I hold my thoughts steadfastly on the good. I do not do this with effort, as if I were commanding something to act. I simply relax in contemplation of the good, secure in the knowledge that everything rests with a power much greater than I am. I trust this power. I have complete faith and confidence in this power. I rely upon this power for guidance in all my daily affairs. I refuse to accept evil, and evil is gone. I accept good, and the supply and love of the universe are mine. Chapter 3. Mind. Miracle of ages, master of all. Mind that ever must be hark to the sound of thy Father's call to the throne and the crown that waiteth for thee. The mystery of mind, how accustomed we are to regarding mind objectively, how conditioned we are to thinking of mind as brain, an isolated accumulation of gray protoplasm 2 inches behind our foreheads. We give our approval to scientific techniques which trace out brain convolutions and nerve networks and tell us of the storage compartments of memory, the cellular seat of reason, the pulpy mass that gives rise to imagination, the spinal network of conditioned responses. These, we say, are these arrangements of matter which we generally investigate in dead persons or in partially inanimate ones. Yet how far from truth this is. No one has ascertained the quality and quantity of I by investigating nerve tissue under a microscope. The impact and mystery of self-consciousness, the personal I am, has never yielded its secret to the surgeon's knife or the biologist's probings. To objectively state that the body has a nerve center called brain does not bring man one step closer to an understanding of his own self-existence, a thing of such stub as dreams are made, of which brain and nerve and tissue are but a result and never a cause. In this chapter, we shall turn from such half-truths into a world of personal consciousness, dealing with mind as divorced from the material, as pure thought and conception, as existing on the spiritual plane of cause and effect. In this manner, we shall arrive at unity, the point where all things are one thing and thought is the only mover, the creator of everything. The instrument of survival. We must first deal with the conscious mind and its so-called compartments of memory, reason, and imagination. This conscious mind of ours exists at the level of the 5 senses and is quite logically a product of hearing, seeing, smelling, feeling, and tasting. Its pursuit is to satisfy each of these 5 senses with sensations which provide pleasure instead of pain. Each of us can remember the beginning of his conscious mind, perhaps at a few months of age, perhaps at only a few days of age. But the memory is there and available for recall and is invariably the recall of sensation, the pleasure or pain of one or more of the 5 senses. The conscious mind, therefore, is a pleasure and pain distinguisher, and its compartments of memory, reason, and imagination are but names given to its total instinct to find pleasure and avoid pain. All conscious organisms are endowed with the life urge to survive, and this life urge manifests itself in each as a conscious intelligence best adapted to cope with its surroundings. This survival instinct must necessarily be based on a pleasure-pain principle, for pleasure is an assurance of survival while pain is a warning of destruction. The system of warnings and assurances set up in each creature is that which we call conscious mind and has its focal seat in the brain and its network of nerves. On the survival plane, the conscious intelligence of the amoeba is suited to the surroundings of the amoeba. The conscious intelligence of the fish is suited to the surroundings of the fish. The conscious intelligence of the jungle cat is suited to the surroundings of the jungle cat. And when it is not, the conscious intelligence changes, and so does the creature. For the experience of pain brings forth the desire to avoid pain, and the desire to avoid pain brings forth an image to escape it, and this image is projected into the creative universal mind, which manifests new form and new conscious intelligence to this life that seeks to cope with its surroundings. Thus, with all evolution, thus, with all adaptation, thus with all of life in whatever form, for form is only temporary, a projection of conscious desire, inescapably the result of thought. Functions of the conscious mind. The conscious mind of man, then, remembers the circumstances which produce pain and pleasure, analyzes from experience which may produce pain and pleasure, imagines a flight into pleasure and escape from pain, and herein lie the compartments of memory, reason, and imagination, Therefore, the conscious mind is a recording, analyzing, and selective instrument for sensation. As an instrument of sensation, the conscious mind is finite, a thing of this world, a thing of the senses, a structural part of a working organism without use or purpose. The conscious mind, then, must be as destructible as the body which houses it, and we concern ourselves with it here only because it is our means of contact with our true selves, and we need to understand what its functions and limitations are. Primarily, the conscious mind is a recorder, an analyzer, and a filer. It records sensation at the level of pain and pleasure. It analyzes this sensation according to circumstances which caused it, and it files such sensation away under one of two main compartments headed Recall about pain and Recall about pleasure. Now, of itself, the conscious mind has no memory. In other words, it does not contain a storehouse in which is laid up all experience and sensation. The faculty of memory as applied to the conscious mind is simply its ability to recall certain experiences and conclusions, which have been recorded in the subconscious mind. For the memory of the subconscious mind is perfect. Every thought of the conscious mind has been indelibly recorded in the subconscious, as well as every sensory perception of the individual. The great mass of this material is forever lost to the recall of the conscious mind, for it can only be so recalled when it has previously been filed away with instructions to the subconscious mind to release it for recall. Beneath the level of consciousness. Thus it can be seen that subconscious memory contains a vast store of material, premises, conclusions, and perceptions that exist without the knowledge of the conscious mind. This vast store of knowledge beneath the level of consciousness affords a great portion of the latent power in each individual person. For could you this moment but recall all this knowledge perfectly, your efficiency and wisdom as an individual would be increased 1,000-fold. These subconscious memories which exist beyond conscious recall are neither a plus nor minus factor in the circumstances surrounding any person. Since the conscious mind has never attached importance to them, has never arrived at conviction concerning them, they do not move the subconscious mind to creation, but simply exist. A huge smattering of experience and knowledge lying dormant. But there lies in the subconscious mind convictions which have been filed away by the conscious mind with the express order never to be available for recall. The prompters. Here in these pain rejections, these conclusions which the conscious mind could not bear to tolerate, these images of conviction which have been buried from sight, we find our illusory devil truly at work. For the nature of the universal intelligence is that it responds to conviction, and the prompters move the subconscious mind to those very things which the individual fears. The conscious mind, the pain-pleasure recorder and analyzer of individual existence, is but an infinitesimal part of a gigantic whole, the entire power and wisdom of which are within the reach of every intelligent person. In order for us to truly grasp the significance of the relationship between man and the universal subconscious mind, we must start at the beginning, an arbitrary and assumed point, for there is no beginning to infinity, just as there is no conclusion. The eternal substance. In the beginning, the Word does not imply that the beginning of the universal mind was a result of the Word, but rather the beginning of our physical universe as we know it today. Indisputably, there must have been a beginning of the physical universe. Undoubtedly, there will be an end. But on the plane of universal mind, we will find no such beginning and no such end. Our attempt to find a starting place for creation is simply an attempt to place ourselves in space and time at a point where our physical universe as we know it did not exist. But this on no account should be considered to be a beginning of all things, for the universal mind is infinite in time and space and substance. It has only been very lately that our probings at the elemental substances of nature have yielded us the knowledge that mass and density are purely relative. The astounding discovery of science that there is no such thing as a solid mass has revised the thinking of the entire world. Even as you read this and consider that the chair upon which you are now sitting is simply a collection of particles which are moving about with the rapidity of express trains, your very credulity is threatened. When you consider further that there is 1,000 times more free space between each of those particles than there is mass in the particles themselves, you are seized with the uncomfortable sensation that you are sitting on nothing. Now, if you will hold this thought for a moment and consider that your own body is similarly made up of a collection of free-moving particles, widely separated by space and moving about in frenzied agitation, then of a sudden you will see the affinity between the chair and yourself. You are both made of the same substance, which is simply a collection of the only substance there is, and the only differences between you and the chair are of form and consciousness. The atomic theory. Not so long ago, science entertained a premise that certain elements were basic in nature and could not be broken down into other substances. This theory held that base metals such as lead, copper, zinc, and iron were eternal substances in the scheme of things for the reason that each of the atoms of which they were composed weighed so much on a scale of relativity. For some time, this theory propounded that elements on the atomic weight scale were the substances from which all things were made. It was difficult for scientists to account for conscious life with this theory, but they seemed to have arrived at some sort of beginning, and so they adopted it and proceeded from there. It seemed logical to assume that the smallest basic unit of mass and energy had been discovered in the atom, especially since all the atoms of a basic element had the same characteristics. Previously, the molecule had been suspect as the smallest unit of matter or energy, but with the discovery and statistical classification of the atom, a new era was ushered in. It followed very shortly, however, that scientists discovered that even the atom was composed of other whirling particles, almost a small universe in which the two principal components were called the electron and the proton. Speculation began as to whether protons and electrons might be freed of the confines of the atom, and one summer's day over Japan, the final result of such speculation bore its fruit. We shall not concern ourselves with the moral implication of science's greatest discovery being used on the battlefields of war, but rather with where we are going now, that the elemental theory of atomic weights no longer gives us convenient classifications of basic substances in nature. For when the atom is split, the element disintegrates, and the question is what happens to it. Mass and energy are one. Thus far, we have only been able to say in general terms that mass is potential energy and energy is potential mass, that a certain weight of uranium, for example, is capable of unleashing a certain amount of power, and that a certain amount of power is capable of creating a certain amount of uranium. And the only possible further conclusion, based on pure scientific research, is that there is only one substance from which everything physical is made, and there is only one substance from which all energy is made, and this energy, or substance, is infinite in time and space. It has no beginning and no end, and thus is everywhere at all times, and all of it is anywhere at any time. This may prove to be a substantial dose to digest, but if you are going to throw off the shackles of limited thinking, you must strive to free yourself from conceptions of form, mass, space, and time as ultimate reality. You must say to yourself that you know that the physical world as you see it could not possibly answer the question of your own existence, so the answer must be elsewhere. You must reach into the furthermost recesses of your mind, for the answer is there and only there and never in the physical world around you. We now know that matter and energy are one, that there is only one substance or energy or intelligence in all things. Since in its pure form we can recognize this energy as nothing but invisible power, unintelligible to our five senses, there is not the slightest valid reason to assume that it is anything else than constant and never-changing in its basic nature, that it always has been and always will be, in other words, that it is infinite. Now, there can be no space or time in anything that is infinite. Infinity has no beginning and no end, and there are no units within it. Infinity is one and only one. If you divide infinity into a series of units, you no longer have infinity but multiplicity instead. Since there are no units within infinity, nothing can be moved from one point to another. And since time is a measure of the movement of a unit through space, there is no time in infinity. Now, what we are saying is essentially this: everything is basically one thing, has no beginning and no end, has no past and no future, but only one eternal now. Einstein has said that since a mass traveling at the speed of light would appear to be everywhere at the same time, the speed of light represents infinity. This premise is a small part of the master mathematician's theory of relativity, which he has stated came to him as an intuition or revelation. The entire theory was years in the proving by a group of highly trained mathematicians working night and day. and even now, there is room for doubt that it is exact. So difficult it is to cope with infinity with finite tools and measurements. Yet few, if any, doubt the basic truth of the theory of relativity today. It is obvious that anything actually traveling infinitely fast would be everywhere at the same time, which could only be one time or all time, and all of whatever was traveling at that speed would be at any particular point, and all of it would be everywhere at all points. Infinity and God. Infinity is a difficult word. Since words are attempts to convey thoughts, the word infinity has come to cover a multitude of so-called unknowables. Today, many people popularly use the word to cover anything that goes beyond their understanding, but it actually is as exact a conception as anything could possibly be. Very probably the most exact conception mankind has ever been able to draw. Infinity is the word that science has substituted for God. This is not to assign to science an irreverent attitude, for scientists, as a group of men, are the most reverent in creation. Scientists simply cannot work with an unknowable, and religion says that God cannot be known. Infinity, says science, is that oneness behind all creation that can be known. Thus, the natural substitution of words. But of course, we are not talking about two different things at all. God is one, infinity is one. God is everywhere, infinity is everywhere. God is an everlasting now, infinity is an everlasting now. God knows everything, infinity contains everything. Religion, biology, botany, chemistry, electronics, physics, and all science, all philosophy, all the thinking efforts of man are but different roads which lead to one common destination, infinity or God, whichever you will. Infinity or God, eternal substance, eternal intelligence, that thing which is everything and yet is but one thing, that thing which is everywhere and yet is in but one place, that thing which is all time and yet is but one time, that thing which is all form and yet is but one form, infinite, eternal, only one and never changing, that to which all things are known and in which every physical object has its being. This is God, and all of God is in us this moment, right now, and all the moments to come. The grand conception. If we have lost you now, it is only because your conception of the final reality of the physical world is so strong that for the moment it will not dissolve before your efforts to free your mind. If you are floundering, wondering whether this is dream or substance, fact or fiction, simply keep your resolve and your faith. You could scarcely learn to speak a new language in several months, and this language transcends all others. Be assured of this. All the mystery and complexity will disappear. As you continue to study and meditate, you will one day read again the portions of this book which seemed complex and will be amazed at how fundamental and simple they seem to you. For you are gathering from each chapter far more than you know, coming closer to an understanding of your true self, breaking down the finite bounds. In your thinking, undergoing an expansion in power and conception that you may as yet be unaware of. Yet you can be sure that when the last chapter reveals the metaphysical secret which is so simple and yet so difficult to grasp, there will be meaning and power in everything that you have read in these pages. So, let us stand for the moment on the conclusion that there is but one power behind the entire universe, which is everywhere at all times and is the substance from which all things are made. In the next chapter, we shall cover in detail how form is called into being through and by this power. But for now, it is enough to know that the same infinite intelligence pervades all life, all vegetable and animal life, and even every inanimate object of our world. This infinite intelligence, then, is the only mind there is. We are all using it. We can't help using it. For it is one and everywhere, and is the stuff from which all things are made. It is as different from the human brain as night is from the day, for the human brain is a specific instrument for a specific organism, for specific surroundings, while the intelligence behind all creation cannot, by itself, be specific in either time or place, form or circumstance. Being eternal and unified, it does not recognize these things, except as projections of the consciousnesses that exist within it. One mind only, which is everywhere and everything. This is the subconscious mind, and now, today, we are able to see it and to experiment with it. Hypnosis exposes the subconscious. First and most important of the tools with which we are able to reach the subconscious is hypnotism, for through the techniques of this science we are able to temporarily put the conscious mind out of the way and deal directly with the God power, the infinite intelligence in every man, the subconscious mind. And the very startling discovery we make immediately is that this subconscious mind reacts entirely by suggestion. In other words, it has no volition of its own. It does not by itself make choices, indulge in arguments, postulate theories, search for answers, wonder at possibilities. It only accepts and acts. Once it is given a suggestion, it immediately sets to work to make that suggestion truth, for it accepts that suggestion completely.